As the fall 2020 school year began, many families were left out wondering how to help their children log into digital classrooms without internet access at home. One news headline even caught a couple young students at a fast food restaurant to use the Wi-Fi there for distance learning. President of the National Education Association, Becky Pringle, is here now to talk about a new report taking a closer look at the digital divide and possible solutions. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much. It's good to join you, Aubrey.
Well, first, let's talk about the digital divide. What is it?
The digital divide is that divide between those students who have access to the internet through broadband access and they have digital tools like laptops and tablets, and those students who do not. This is not a new issue. This is something that has existed, quite honestly, forever. It is a disparity and equity in our system that has been based on race and economic status and geography. We now know, because of the pandemic, that this divide is growing, it is exacerbated, and we must bridge this divide for our students.
Yeah, COVID definitely exposing the digital divide a little bit more. Now, the National Education Association recently released this new report, and it highlights those disparities you mentioned. What are some of the other key takeaways?
What we did in our report is that we wanted to dig into the specifics around this divide. So we divided it up into states. So we have information about California. California ranks about that same average. About 24% of the students in California do not have access to the internet, do not have the digital tools they need. But if we dig down into those statistics, we know that our students of color are less likely to have access, and most especially our students living in poverty. 43% of the students in California living in poverty do not have access to the internet. That is not okay, and we must bridge that gap.
Yeah, so you guys are working to close the digital divide, and you mentioned some of the people that are affected the most. Why is it so important that we really make this a priority?
We know that with the pandemic and for the foreseeable future, we'll absolutely need to make sure that all of our students have access to the internet, have access to digital tools, whether they are still learning remotely or whether they are doing some kind of hybrid model or even in-person learning. They must have access to these tools so that that learning gap does not grow. We want to make sure that they have the resources from the federal government that will actually finally close that gap. And so we're asking everyone to call their senator and demand that they pass the HEROES Act now.
And you talk about this report that came out, and there are some solutions. What are those?
One of the solutions is working with educators to figure out ways to bridge that gap. So we're asking that communities and other education stakeholders work collaboratively together. We also know that our educators need more professional development on digital tools, and so we're working on that. Some of our schools are not equipped. Some of our teachers don't have the digital tools they need. We need to make sure that they have those resources. But mostly, we need to pass policies that finally get at the systemic inequities that brought about this divide. So we are encouraging everyone to go to NEA.org/digital equity to learn more about the divide in your area, as well as to take action demanding that the senators in the U.S. Senate actually pass the HEROES Act and provide that $12 billion in funding we need.
And again, who are the families that are most affected by the digital divide?
We know that families that are living in rural areas, we know that our families that are living in poverty, we know our communities of color are most likely to experience that gap in access to the internet, in access to those digital tools. We also know that we need to provide support for those families because when our students are at home learning, they need additional support. So we know that resources are absolutely required to make sure that every one of our students, everyone, has what they need and they deserve.
All right, Becky Pringle talking about the digital divide and ways we can work to fix it. For more on how the National Education Association is championing justice and excellence in public education, visit NEA.org.